In 2022, the FDA released a rule that sent shockwaves through one of the most protected monopolies in American healthcare. For decades, 5 corporations had convinced millions of seniors that a tiny device containing less than $15 in electronic components was worth $6,000 a pair. Then Costco started selling the exact same technology, made by the very same manufacturer, for $1,400. And now Apple is selling a hearing aid for $249. We are going to expose the pricing scheme that has been quietly draining the retirement savings of an entire generation and show you the only 3 ways to buy a hearing aid without getting robbed. If you have ever walked into a hearing aid clinic, you probably saw names like Miracle Ear, Beltone, Phonak, and Oticon displayed on the walls. You probably assumed these were independent companies competing to build you a better device. That is an illusion. The reality is that 5 massive corporations control 84% of the American hearing aid market and 90% of the global market. They are called the Big Five. Sonova of Switzerland makes Phonak. Demont of Denmark makes Oticon and sells under the Philips name. WS Audiology makes Signia and Widex. GN Group makes ReSound and Beltone, and Starkey is the only American member. These companies do not just manufacture the devices, they own the clinics that sell them. They own the hearing benefit managers that control which products your insurance will cover. It is a vertically integrated system where the same corporation that builds the product also controls the distribution and sets the price. And the price they have set is extraordinary. The average pair of hearing aids in the United States costs roughly $4,500 at a traditional clinic. Premium models from chains like Miracle Ear can reach $7,000 or more for a single pair. And here is what they do not want you to know. The microphones, speakers, and processing chip inside that device cost between $10 and $15. A finished hearing aid costs roughly $200 to $300 to manufacture. Consumer Reports found that the average retail markup on hearing aids is 117%. Everything above that is margin, and the people paying it are almost always seniors on fixed incomes being told this is a medical necessity. But the real scandal is not just what they charge. It is what happens to the millions of people who cannot afford to pay. Nearly 30 million Americans could benefit from wearing hearing aids right now, but fewer than 1 in 5 who need them actually use them. And the number one reason is the price. The average person waits 9 years after being diagnosed with hearing loss before purchasing their first device. 9 years of missing conversations with their grandchildren. 9 years of slowly withdrawing from the people they love. 9 years of accelerating damage to the brain. Because untreated hearing loss is not just an inconvenience. The 2020 Lancet Commission on Dementia Prevention identified hearing loss as the single largest modifiable risk factor for dementia, responsible for an estimated 8% of all cases worldwide. A landmark clinical trial called the ACHIEVE study, published in The Lancet in 2023, found that hearing intervention slowed cognitive decline by 48% in a high-risk subgroup of older adults. Your brain needs sound input the same way your muscles need exercise. When it stops getting that stimulation, it begins to deteriorate. So you would think that if this is a medical device capable of protecting your brain from cognitive decline, Medicare would cover it. It does not. Original Medicare has explicitly excluded hearing aids from coverage since 1965. When the program was first created, Congress considered them routine and inexpensive. But the technology has advanced dramatically while the law has remained frozen in time. A bipartisan bill called the Medicare Hearing Aid Coverage Act was introduced in January of 2025, but analysts give it roughly a 1% chance of passing. So the people who need hearing aids the most, seniors on fixed retirement income, are forced to pay full retail out of pocket. And the companies selling those devices have designed a pricing system to keep you from understanding what you are actually paying for. The system is called Bundled pricing. When you walk into a Miracle Ear clinic or any traditional provider, they do not hand you an itemized bill. They do not show you the cost of the device, the cost of the fitting, and the cost of follow-up visits separately. They roll everything into one massive number. Industry insiders have admitted that this bundled figure is typically based on nothing tangible. It exists for one reason: to make comparison shopping impossible. You never learn what the device itself costs versus the services wrapped around it. And that is exactly what brings us to the company that blew this entire pricing system wide open. In 1989, Costco started selling hearing aids inside its warehouse stores. The traditional hearing aid industry dismissed it as a gimmick. What could a bulk retailer possibly know about audiology? But Costco was never trying to reinvent hearing aid technology. It was trying to expose the markup. In 2019, Costco released the Kirkland Signature 9 hearing aid for $1,499 a pair. That device was manufactured by Sonova, the same Swiss corporation that makes Phonak, one of the most respected names in the industry. The Kirkland Signature shared the same technology platform as the Phonak Marvel, a device that sold for over $4,000 at traditional clinics. Same manufacturer, same core chip, same engineering, 65% cheaper. Consumer Reports surveyed thousands of hearing aid buyers across 17 different retailers and found that Costco ranked second in overall customer satisfaction, behind only the Veterans Administration. 90% of Costco hearing aid buyers said they would recommend their provider to others. And here is the detail that should make every Miracle Ear customer furious. In that same survey, Consumer Reports gave Miracle Ear the worst value score of any brand they evaluated, because Miracle Ear does not manufacture a single hearing aid. Not one. The company is owned by Amplifon, an Italian corporation that happens to be the largest hearing aid retailer on the planet. Miracle Ear operates roughly 1,500 locations across the United States, most of them franchises. The devices they sell are widely understood by industry experts to be rebranded Signia technology, manufactured by WS Audiology. They take another company's product, put their label on it, and charge you $4,000 to $7,000. And then they lock the software on the device so that no other provider can adjust it or service it, trapping you inside their ecosystem for the life of the product. The Federal Trade Commission fined the company $2.75 million back in 1995 for making false and unsubstantiated claims about its products. The Better Business Bureau lists over 100 complaints against the corporate headquarters in just 3 years, and a class action lawsuit resulted in an $8 million settlement over unsolicited telemarketing calls targeting seniors. This is the company that has positioned itself as the most trusted name in hearing care. But when the federal government finally tried to break this pricing monopoly open, the Big Five fought back with everything they had. In 2017, Senators Elizabeth Warren and Chuck Grassley introduced the bipartisan Over-the-Counter Hearing Aid Act, which passed the United States Senate by a vote of 94-1. The law directed the FDA to create a new category of hearing aids that American adults could purchase without a prescription, without a mandatory medical exam, and without paying for a professional fitting. Simple devices for people with mild to moderate hearing loss, sold at fair prices. But the FDA missed its own deadline of August 2020. It took a direct executive order from President Biden in July of 2021 to force the agency to finally act. And during the public comment period, Senators Warren and Grassley uncovered something remarkable. They documented an organized astroturf lobbying campaign run by the Big Five manufacturers. The industry generated more than 400 form letters that were submitted as independent public comments to the FDA. Those letters represented 40% of every comment the agency received. Large passages contained identical wording, including identical typographical errors copied from letter to letter. Industry front groups with friendly names like Listen Carefully and Hear About Hearing provided pre-written templates and coached individuals to insert personal stories between the manufactured arguments so the letters would appear genuine. The president of Starkey publicly declared that hearing loss is a medical issue, not a consumer electronics opportunity. But the Academy of Doctors of Audiology, a group that actually supported the rule, offered a more direct response. Their executive director said that the only way you are going to die from using a hearing aid is if you eat it. The FDA's final rule took effect on October 17, 2022, and it changed everything. Today, you have 3 realistic ways to buy a hearing aid without being exploited by the traditional system. The first option is Costco. Even after Sonova ended its Kirkland Signature Supply contract in late 2022, Costco continues to sell premium branded hearing aids from Jabra, Philips, Rexton, and Sennheiser for roughly $1,400 to $1,700 a pair. That includes a hearing test, professional fitting, and free follow-up adjustments for the life of the device. Costco's estimated markup is just 15%, compared to well over 100% at traditional clinics. You need a membership, which costs $60 a year, but that single membership will save you $3,000 or more on a pair of hearing aids. The second option is the new generation of over-the-counter hearing aids created by the 2022 FDA rule. Brands like Jabra, Enhance, Sony, and Lexi now sell directly to consumers for $200 to $1,000 a pair with no prescription and no appointment required. These devices are designed for adults with mild to moderate hearing loss, and while they are not a replacement for professional evaluation in serious cases, they are a legitimate solution for millions of Americans who have spent years unable to afford the traditional price. But over-the-counter adoption is still surprisingly low. As of 2025, only about 6% of hearing aid users have gone the over-the-counter route, largely because most people do not know these products exist. But the real earthquake hit on September 12, 2024. Apple received FDA authorization for the AirPods Pro 2 to function as a certified over-the-counter hearing aid. A clinical study of 118 participants found that people who used Apple's self-fitting software achieved hearing improvement comparable to those who received a professional fitting on the same device. The price is $249. When the announcement hit the market, Amplifon's stock dropped 7% in a single session. Sonova, Demont, and GN all fell between 1% and 4%. $249 for a device that performs comparably to products being sold for $6,000. That is not a pricing discrepancy. That is an exposure event. That is the moment the entire industry's cost structure was laid bare for the world to see. Now, there are legitimate reasons to see an audiologist. Severe hearing loss, asymmetric hearing loss, and conditions like tinnitus absolutely require professional diagnosis and proper fitting. But for the millions of Americans who have been told for decades that they need to spend $5,000 or $6,000 on a pair of devices that cost $300 to build, the illusion is over. The alternatives exist. The only question is whether you know about them. And that is exactly what the Big Five are counting on. They are counting on you not knowing that Costco sells the same technology for a fraction of the price. They are counting on you not knowing that over-the-counter hearing aids are now legal, effective, and available without a prescription. They are counting on you not knowing that the AirPods already sitting in your drawer might be the only hearing aid you will ever need. These companies built a system where your confusion is their profit margin and your ignorance is the only thing keeping the markup alive. Nearly 30 million Americans need hearing aids right now, and for most of them, the biggest obstacle is not the technology. It is a pricing system built by 5 corporations that decided your ability to hear should cost whatever the market will bear. They charge thousands for devices that cost hundreds to make. They lobby against laws that would create competition, and they count on the fact that most customers will never question the price because a person in a white coat told them it was necessary. It is not a medical price. It is a monopoly price. Check who actually manufactures the device before you buy it. Compare the price at Costco before you sign anything. And never hand over $6,000 for something that Apple proved can be done for $249. If you found this investigation eye-opening, hit subscribe so you do not miss the next time we expose the industries that are quietly profiting from your confusion.